Swadee Krap. Thank you very much to the organising committee and Nui for inviting me back to Bangkok this year. It's an honour to be here, and especially it's a real learning opportunity for me to come again to a culture and a society where ideas like sufficiency and peace and sustainability are so embedded. And thank you to Koan as well for being such a tireless inspiration to everybody who's trying to make business better. We work with lots of multinationals and helping them think through their purpose and act on their purpose and communicate their purpose. And one thing that's becoming increasingly clear through our experience is that different parts of the organization are trying to get into purpose, which is good in one sense, but it can lead to some tension and confusion. So that's what I wanted to talk about, and hopefully it gives some ideas for your organizations as to how you can take purpose forward. So who owns purpose in an organization? I'll answer it with another question. What is purpose? Well, lots of organizations have a purpose. The Mafia, for example, has a very clear purpose, but I don't think that's really the sort of organization we're looking at. The United Nations sets out its purpose very clearly, and the 4 things that United Nations stands for. What do we mean by purpose? Well, lots of the talks have been talking about that. What the definition I find most helpful in relation to business is twofold. The purpose, why you exist, and then crucially, what people would really miss if you didn't exist. So if you didn't exist as an organization and people quite happily then move on to another company, then you haven't really got a strong purpose. I think the way to think about that purpose is, what are you delivering that is external to the business that drives societal benefit? Because if you're doing that, then people will really miss you if you don't exist. And the pressure for purpose is building. That's one of the reasons we're here today. It's one of the reasons for the theme of the whole conference, because the pressure is building on business. The pressure from the anti-capitalist movement and the pressure groups, the pressure from millennials, which we've talked a lot about, and Generation Z coming in behind them, who want purpose in their work and purpose in the choices they're making and what they purchase, and the pressure, thankfully, from investors too, and socially responsible investment, putting pressure on businesses to think about that higher purpose. And we're seeing it, we've seen Howard Schultz already, and Starbucks, and what Thomas was talking about. Companies are now expressing their purpose. I don't think these were generated by the random purpose generator, but there's elements in there. But they're all talking about purpose now, from consumer-facing companies like Starbucks to professional services and business-to-business organizations like the big consultants, Ernst & Young and Deloitte, to fabulous smaller organizations like On Purpose, which helps people find purpose in their work. Now, how that is managed is becoming more complex. It used to be very simple. So this is an organization I feel very attached to called Unilever, a client we do a lot of work with, and actually the image on the left is the houses that William Lever, when he set up his company near Liverpool in England in the 1880s, built nice houses for his workers, and that's very near to where I grew up. Not in one of those houses, but very close by. And as a child, we'd go and visit them, and you'd understand the stories about it. And he built these houses because he wanted to sweat the machine, not the worker. And at the same time, he was creating products like Lifebuoy soap, again, a product very close to my heart, a brand he built that was about making cleanliness commonplace. But he is in that nascent company, he was in charge of the purpose. So it was very clear how that purpose was managed, and it touched all parts of the organization. But now, purpose is spreading. The sales organization is interested in purpose. Marketing and branding, we've talked about a lot. HR is interested in purpose. Corporate affairs is interested in purpose. It touches all parts of the organization, and all parts of the organization want a piece of it. So let's take this step by step. The sales organization wants to talk about purpose and embrace purpose because it helps them win share in sales channels. B2C, the business-to-consumer organizations, companies who are selling goods to consumers through the retailers, if they can demonstrate a clear purpose, that will help them get front of store in the retailers. So Andrex toilet tissue, the biggest non-food brand in the UK, one of the brands we work with, they get put in the front of the store because they have a very clear purpose around helping the sanitation crisis. So the retailers put them front of store without them having to pay the promotional spend to be there because they have a clear established purpose. Business-to-business organizations, so companies selling to other businesses, they're having to be very clear about their purpose now so that they can win the tenders to serve companies like Unilever who are at the front line, because it's increasingly a requirement in tenders and through procurement process. And obviously we're seeing huge growth in companies looking to sell to consumers at the bottom of the pyramid. And if you are selling to people who really don't have much money, you better be really clear that you are serving some sort of purpose that is important to them. Purpose is important for the sales force. It's also important, as we've talked more about the last couple of days, to marketing, to standing out and getting other people to tell your story. So these are two great examples. I think Coffee versus Gangs, I won't show the film now, but it's a fabulous example. If you Google it, if you haven't seen it already, this is Kenco, the coffee company. They talk about their purpose, sustainable sourcing of coffee, like lots of the coffee industry now talks about. But they focus on a relatively small element of that program, helping young men in Honduras find careers in coffee farming rather than be tempted into gangs. And they use that in the marketing. The marketing side of the organization has used that very effectively to tell the Kenco story and help them stand out from all the other coffee manufacturers. And at a time where it's increasingly difficult to reach their consumers through advertising because we're able to skip advertising, we're not consuming media in the same way, having a story that people want to pass on is hugely valuable for marketing, and purpose gives them that story. Even more cost-effective is having a purpose so clearly articulated like Patagonia does, that young people in particular use your brand to curate their own personal brand and share your brand image through their own social media feeds without you doing any work at all, because their purpose is so clearly articulated. So the marketing side of the organization is interested in purpose too. HR needs to embrace purpose, wants to embrace purpose, because it will help them attract, retrain, and motivate the best talent. And we saw from some of Thomas's examples, young people are looking for a different reason to go to work. So we see our own research here actually about Generation Z, so 16 to 20-year-olds across Asia, Europe, America, are saying in choosing a job, I would rank working for a company that helps make the world a better place as important a consideration as salary. And we see that across the Deloitte survey of millennials. It's insane. We all recognize that now. So having a clear purpose helps you bring definitely that younger generation into your business. And then we see a company like Unilever, very close to my heart, but with the best will in the world, not the sexiest industry in the world. They're selling toilet cleaner, laundry powder, shampoos, and yet they sit in the top 3 most in-demand employers in the world alongside the sexy companies like Google and Apple. That is because they have a clear purpose that is understood, builds trust, as Globescan were talking about yesterday. That clearly articulated purpose gives them a huge advantage in HR. And finally, in corporate affairs, having a clear purpose helps organizations avoid pitfalls and stay in business. So for one example, and again, we talked about this yesterday, and certainly Michael Dickstein at Heineken talked about this, that if you can have a clear purpose and really promote your license to operate, your reason to exist in the world, it helps you stay ahead of regulators and not wait till they come after you. A very live issue for the agrochemical industry, the companies who make pesticides and those sorts of things, they need very quickly to establish and articulate their purpose, and they can play a very real role in the Sustainable Development Goals and helping alleviate global hunger. And in a world of 10 billion people, we need their help. And yet, if they don't articulate that purpose and understand that purpose and form alliances around that purpose, they will be pressured out of business, labeled the bee killers, and will lose their license to operate. So the license to operate and having a clear purpose is essential for the corporate affairs people in the organization. So what we see, and there are other parts of the organization too, you see the consumer side, the consumer-facing side of the organization, the sales, the marketing guys, they're interested in purpose, as are, on the corporate side, the HR and corporate affairs teams as well. Does it matter? You know, we talked about organizations as a whole embracing purpose. Does it matter if the management of that purpose is spreading to more parts of the organization than we saw in that original old William Lever example? Well, I think it does. Lego is a fabulous company with many amazing initiatives and a commitment to sustainability that is right up there. And they talk about, on the environmental side, they want to create positive impact through their environmental actions. And they're pushing for renewable energy. And there is, you look at the HR part of the company, the corporate affairs part of the company, it's all there driving those things. And yet, they got into real problems and being attacked by Greenpeace last year because their sales part of the organization probably wasn't on the same page on the purpose, and they were selling Lego toys through Shell gas stations. And that created a real stress, that there seemed to be a tension in the purpose between certain parts of the organization pushing forward on it and other parts not quite on the same page. This is an even stronger example, I think. There is a reason why that one's sideways. I can't remember what the reason is, but trust me, there's a reason for it. So CVS, the pharmacy in America, articulated a very clear purpose that they are about helping people on their path to better health. That purpose, that they bought into it, and as a result, they took took tobacco out of all their stores, and they sold billions of dollars worth of tobacco every year. So it was a big issue. It was a big step for them to take, but they said, no, this is our purpose, that doesn't fit with our purpose, it's out. And the resulting, where they marketed themselves, positioned themselves, they recouped those sales in relatively short order. So it was a really good example of a purpose, making a decision based on that purpose and winning in the longer term. However, at the same time, it doesn't look like the HR part of the organization is on the same page at all, because you see CVS ranked as in the 12 worst companies to work for, because that purpose isn't translating within the workforce. People there don't feel, well, you're not interested in our health and well-being the way you treat us. So again, that purpose, important to have one, vital to have one, but it needs to go across. There can't be tensions in how it's applied across the organization. So then the way to think about it, and this is a way that helps us think about it, is having purpose at the center of a wheel and then looking at how each of the constituent parts of an organization can make it relevant to them. And coming back to my favorite soap, so Lifebuoy is a soap brand we've worked with for the last 10 years, has a very clear purpose, has done some amazing work, and so far has reached more than 325 million people with its hand-washing behavior change programs, based on the insight that hand-washing with soap can save 1 million lives every year and reduce death from diarrhea and pneumonia that accounts for more childhood deaths than malaria, TB, and AIDS combined. So it's a really important thing. Lifebuoy has a clear purpose centered on it that relates to its business, and at the same time, it had became the fastest growing brand inside Unilever. So a real, to Thomas's point, the two heads of the monster became one head. How does that play out in terms of purpose? Well, in terms of the chief exec and the board's agenda, it's totally aligned with where Paul Polman is taking Unilever and this concept of a company that's going to double the size of the company, halve its environmental impact, and deliver health and well-being to 1 billion people. Lifebuoy is absolutely on message there, which means that Paul comes and helps us when we're doing any sort of events around Lifebuoy. And to Stephen's point yesterday, that's relating to the Sustainable Development Goals. We now have a hand-washing indicator within the Sustainable Development Goals, so we can build the momentum behind hand-washing. And just picking up on the SDGs and what Stephen said yesterday, the answers to purpose are there. In those 17 goals and those 169 indicators, you will find a purpose in there, and far better to look in there than the random mission generators. So the CEO delivers on that purpose. So the Lifebuoy purpose to save lives and help mums ensure their kids fall ill a little less often. The sales side of the organization, well, this now drives, that purpose drives the innovation pipeline and the products that the sales force sell to retailers. So innovations coming through, the new products that are coming to market are products that deliver on that. So they have, a couple of years ago, developed a hand washing that changed color. So it encouraged children to wash their hands because it turned a Hulk green when they washed their hands with the soap. So sales, absolutely in line with the purpose. The finance side of the business, well, crystal clear that if we can encourage people to wash their hands with soap more often, we're going to sell more soap. So the finance guys are absolutely okay and on board with this purpose. Corporate affairs and forming alliances. We helped create something called Global Hand Washing Day, which I know you'll all be celebrating October the 15th, this Saturday. And that, the corporate affairs then side of the business, forms alliances with other organizations who can align with that purpose, organizations like UNICEF and other health charities. The marketing side of the organization has really gone to town on this, and the ad guys producing incredible films that we'll show a bit later on in one of the breakout sessions this afternoon. That purpose of helping children reach their 5th birthday and saving lives creates incredible potential for distinctive marketing material that helps the brand stand out. And then the HR engaging people, so not only do people feel good that they work for Lifebuoy because it's doing these things, but there are opportunities throughout for them to get involved, to teach hand washing, to volunteer, and to really live and breathe that purpose. So the purpose swims around the whole of the brand, and everybody takes responsibility for it. And that's, I'm afraid, a very simple answer, and perhaps not, and obviously, but it's the truth. Everybody has to own purpose, but own it in a way that is made relevant to my department, in the way that Lifebuoy makes that central purpose relevant in different ways to different departments. But at the same time, it's dangerous for one person or one department to own purpose, because other people can then think it's someone else's job. So I think the answer, I'm afraid, but it's true, this is that everybody needs to own purpose and no one at the same time. So these, if you'll forgive me a tiny plug, these and other themes will be explored in a new book that's coming out at the end of the month. So thank you very much for your time, and have a wonderful rest of the conference.